to show you how popular he was as a teacher, how everybody dreamed of studying with him. I remember the days when the students would line up for registration in the spring or in the fall, and they would get there an hour before the door opened, before the registrar's door opened. And I even saw one time, honestly, one student give another $10 in order to get closer to the front of the line, because the registrar only allowed 18 or 20 students in the class, and everybody else, there were about 50 or 75 students standing in line, they were never going to get there. This class was called L&M 4, meaning the 4th year of theory, and all contemporary music, and everybody in that building wanted to be in that class.
It was a class about his book, really. He used the book as an example, and you talked about the book, but
the harmonic practice.
Yeah, harmonic practice. But the thing that's so fantastic about that book, and you kind of alluded to it, was that it has a description of different techniques. It has the musical examples that he wrote that are just like Vincent Persichetti on every single little excerpt that's there. You can see the personality. And he would give, at the end of each little section, there's a list of works from all over the 20th century with the page numbers in the score so the students can go and look at other composers making use of these different techniques. And that's the book that he used in this course that was so popular. At the end of his, I don't know, last 10 or 15 years, I don't know that he taught any other L&M.
It was just that.
It was that class, and I'm sure earlier on he taught all sorts of things. But that was this class that was so popular.
Marga, when did you study with Persichetti?
I don't have any good stories to tell. I think he learned on us. I was his first student at Juilliard.
You were his first student?
Is that right? First class. We had 2 or 3 people.
What year was that?
47.
47?
Trying to take 10 years off. And I know he didn't play my pieces through. I think he learned on us and did better later on. But and I didn't, I never asked him for money. But he did take me out to dinner periodically. We were friends forever after that. Just, yeah.
Well, I know that most of you are teachers and teach composition, some of you, and I can't imagine a more difficult subject to teach than composition. And so I'm wondering if any of your experiences with Vincent Persichetti informed the way that you teach composition at all.
I think it really affected me. I was really fortunate. I had my teacher before Persichetti was Nadia Boulanger, and I would write to him and tell him how things were going in Paris for me. And I wasn't his student yet, but at that point I was asking if I could be his student. So it was really interesting for me to juxtapose Boulanger and then Persichetti. But I think it was the thing that has influenced me the most as a composition teacher from his influence is that you take each student as they come, and you don't try to have a preconceived notion of what they should be. And that's why I was always so interested. When I was at Juilliard, it was Persichetti, Diamond, Babbitt, Sessions, and Carter, which is an unbelievable lineup. I loved, they were all great, they were all nice to me, they were all helpful to me, taught me a lot, each and every one of them. But as I looked at the students, Persichetti students were the most diverse in terms of style. And I don't know, I don't think the other teachers necessarily were trying to make their students like them. Maybe those students went wanting to be like them so much. But to want to be like Persichetti meant that you had to be like, take in all kinds of styles, because his music was so interestingly different from one piece to the next. And so I always try and remember that when I have a student, that I listen to what the student's doing, I make suggestions, and I let it try and grow from there. I give 4 or 5 suggestions, and I say, the best thing that's going to come of this is your next 2 or 3 thoughts of how you're going to proceed, which is what he did with us.
Well, I like to say that he made you feel like the music had to go someplace, that arrival point. And he didn't get into the specifics with us. Maybe he learned on his first few students at Juilliard. But he just made you feel like your piece was worth something and do something with it, you know, get excited about it. And I still try to do that.
Yeah, I think because he knew all of the languages of his day, he could relate to any language that a student was writing. And so he could always offer suggestions, but he was always so great, as I think Larry's getting at, of getting inside that particular individual's piece.
Right.
I mean, Bill Schimmel tells a great story, which I think is maybe in our...
Do you want to read it or do you want to tell it?
Well, I'm going to do a shortened version
Okay.
of that. I'm going to tell the story the way Bill first told it to me after it happened. And Bill had been working on, I guess, his big piece of Mass. And it was going to be about an hour's length. And then they got to the last lesson for this Mass. And they both sort of felt like somehow, even in this 1 hour long piece, something's missing. And they parted company. And the next week, and during the week, Bill had decided he was going to put a motet in the middle of the Mass, and an Ave Verum Corpus, no less, he decided. He walks in the door to Persichetti studio a week later, and first thing out of Persichetti's mouth is, "Bill, I think you need an Ave Verum Corpus." So, you know, he could just get on people's wavelength and sort of be able to follow along with you.
One of my friends who was a student, Larry Thomas Bell, tells a funny story of having not been very productive one week, and he wrote like 2 measures of music or 3 measures of music, which it's hard to fill up an hour critiquing 2 or 3 measures. But Persichetti proceeded to improvise in his style for the next 10 minutes his piece that he should have written, you know, message sent. And it's just fascinating how that would happen at lessons. Yeah.
Do you think it meant a lot to him to try to promote any kind of Americanness in his composition students, or did he just view his music as international in scope, or?
I think as we were saying, I don't think he had any axes to grind or any particular paths that he wanted anybody to go on except whatever path you were on already, and he would try to smooth the path for you, you know, show you how far down the road you could keep going, anything like that. But he was never trying to direct you, I think, in any particular way.
No, not outwardly.
And besides that, you know, we had people like Ralph Ibarra studying with him from Finland. I mean, so many different styles and affiliations that.
And you were saying you studied with Nadia Boulanger.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about contrasting the 2 teaching styles?
Well, it just Nadia Boulanger was very old and she was nearly blind, but they had, by the time I got there, from 75 to 77. But she was amazing ear, amazing mind. She in very different worlds. That was like stepping back into the 19th century. But it was the same kind of genius, though she herself stopped composing. It was the same kind of insight and knowledge of the repertoire genius that Persichetti had, only he was a modern guy, you know, up to date, really up to date with things. And so they both had the ability to hear very deeply and to just know so much.
Yeah, I studied with Persichetti my first year at Juilliard, and then I spent that summer with Boulanger. And the contrast was incredible. While they had all of these things in common, Persichetti was just always encouraged you to become yourself, basically. And Boulanger was, you do this, then you do that, then you do that, and then you do that. And you shouldn't do this before you do that. So there were really specific steps that she, as a teacher, sort of required her to do.
She was more systematic.
Oh yeah, way more systematic.
But she also wasn't a composer after the first 25 years of her life, 30 years of her life.